Hello, everyone.
Tere- Great. Teresa, let's start with you. Can you tell us a little bit more about your role? I understand that you wear multiple hats, being over product and technology, and high-level summary about Stack Overflow for all of us.
Sure. So I think most people know Stack Overflow for the public platform that we host. For most technologists, know it well, right? Most likely to be your top Google search return is an answer on Stack Overflow. I joined, we also have a couple other business lines. So we have a whole talent business line that helps technologists and technology employers get matched for jobs and learn about employers. And then we have what we call Stack Overflow Teams, which is letting technology companies or technology organizations within companies have their own internal version of Stack Overflow to help them with spreading knowledge and solve problems and not have to wait for someone to answer your question, especially if they're commonly asked questions. I joined Stack Overflow in January. And as you said, have responsibility for both product and technology. And for me, it was sort of the culmination of 23 years in working in the technology field to get to build technology products for technologists with technologists. It's sort of very meta for me, and it's been really exciting.
That's exciting. Thank you for sharing that. Ameesh, what about you? Can you share a little bit more about what falls under your purview and a little more about OfferUp and the recent developments?
Yeah. So just a little bit about OfferUp. We are, the country's largest mobile marketplace. So we help connect customers, buyers and sellers, to help it kind of exchange goods and value with each other. I'm their CTO. I joined last April, so I'm just a little over a year now in the company. And my role is really focused around helping to design, build, deploy, and operate all of our product offerings. So, our mobile apps, our website, our data science and engineering organization, our program management office, et cetera. So, my goal is really to make sure that we have, our customers have a great experience using OfferUp, and we create the simplest and most trusted marketplace that we can.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that. I'm personally a fan of OfferUp. I got introduced to it by my wife when she was listing some of her items on OfferUp, and that's how it came about. So a lot of exciting stuff. Teresa, well, Ameesh, let me first start with you from a standpoint of transitioning into fully remote operations during, the COVID-19. Can you share with us a little bit more as far as what some of the challenges that you guys have faced with this transition, and how did you guys address and overcome those?
Yeah, so this is an excellent question, and I would say there's a little bit of wisdom and a little bit of dumb luck in our ability to kind of deal with this this change in ecosystem. One of the big process changes that we had started to implement about 6 months prior to COVID happening was really kind of understanding, deconstructing, and normalizing our agile process. All of our sprint planning, communication strategies, workforce tracking, burn downs, all of these kinds of things, they were a little bit loosey-goosey across the organization. And we spent some time really thinking about how do we track the efficacy of our teams, our product teams, our technology teams, our operations teams, et cetera. And largely, most of the problems focused around communications. And so we implemented a kind of a series of channels, reporting systems, et cetera. And I'm not a very big process monger, so I don't enjoy like putting too much stuff on everybody's plate when it comes to these kinds of issues. But honestly, just cleaning it up a little bit and tightening up a little bit and making sure that everybody understood very clearly, this is what we're doing, this is why we're doing it, this is how you find problems, this is how you resolve problems, and if you have to escalate, this is the way you do that. That led us to a very operationally efficient model of how we talk to each other. And so when we ended up, creating a policy at the office to say, like, listen, we're closing the office, everybody's going to work from home. All of those systems and processes still ended up working really well. And again, it wasn't a large scale change. I would say it was like a 10-degree course correction to make sure that everything was tightened up just in the right way to make sure that people knew who to talk to, when to talk to them, and how we communicate that progress. So I see a question here and there that says, all of your teams in the US or across the globe? So we used to be only based in Bellevue, Washington, which is a suburb of Seattle. We recently opened, last August, we opened up a new office in South Florida and Miami. And that created our first opportunity there. And so now, we're working very well. And the interesting point that I keep making to my staff, they often come to me and say, well, when do you think we're going to get back to normal? And, my point to them is that I think this is the new normal. I think we need to get kind of embrace this and really lean into the storm, not lean back from it, which is going to give us the opportunity to attract talent, not only in our two kind of site locations of Miami and Bellevue, but also there's huge amounts of talent that we haven't tapped into traditionally because we would kind of force relocation. Now, I think, this is a good forcing function for us to operate in a much more modern way, kind of like Teresa's team does. So.
That's great. Thank you, Ameesh, for sharing that. And, on top of it all, during the COVID, you guys actually went through, pretty big change as well through the acquisition of, Lego.
That's right.
Was that a significant impact or change to your guys' operations at all?
Well, I mean, obviously when, for those of you who are unaware, there are two kind of independent marketplaces, pretty big ones that were OfferUp, and then one of our big competitors, Letgo. We recently just announced last month that we're going to be acquiring Letgo as well as a significant investment from their parent company. So timing impeccable. Obviously, lots of stuff going on, but the idea here is that we're better together. We have very mutually exclusive locations where we're strong in. So the liquidity that we're going to be adding into our market where, Letgo, for example, is very strong in New York, and we're very strong in LA. And so it becomes a very complementary offering. I have to say, we're in the process of kind of a sizable re-platforming. We are in the process of this acquisition. We are in the middle of COVID. There's a lot going on at the moment. And so it's definitely keeping everybody busy. But I feel very fortunate that we have an amazing group of people in Miami and Bellevue that have the fire in their belly to kind of really make this work. And so right now the team is very inspired and pushing hard to make all of these work streams come together in the right way.
That's great. That's exciting. Definitely very exciting times for you guys. Teresa, would love to talk to you a little bit more about attracting top talent, especially during these times. I understand your guys' model was, pretty much fully remote even prior to these times. So not much, I'm assuming, has changed from the operation standpoint. I'm curious, what strategies have worked for you well in the past and currently in terms of attracting the top talent to Stack Overflow?
I think whenever I come into a new organization, I really spend time in trying to figure out, for the people that are there, why did they come there, right? What is unique about either the mission, how we work, what are the opportunities, and then also really figuring out what are the traits of folks that succeed in this organization. Because not everyone is successful everywhere based on culture and challenges and everything. And apologies for the cats. They sort of can't be tamed. They can open doors, so it doesn't really matter. But so I think that's something that I look at everywhere. I think, when it comes to Stack, I think people are really attracted to the mission. Especially hiring in the product and technology orgs. They love the idea of getting to help technologists solve really hard problems. And so looking for people who are problem solvers themselves is really important. And I think to your point during the current situation, I think there are things that matter more. I think the mission matters even more to folks. I think that the benefits that you offer matter even more, that you offer your folks. And I think, a lot of people who came to Stack before and are coming now, that we have a really generous benefits package. And I think that's, really, only become more important to people. And then flexibility, right? So we've worked with our employees who now are balancing childcare and education and or caregiver because someone in their family is sick, to help balance and have flexibility in schedule to ensure that they can keep working if that's what they want to do, and they can maintain their benefits, right? And they can still get a paycheck and everything. And so I think, those things that were important now just have gone up in importance. And so talking about those with folks, encouraging as people are doing interviews, encouraging our folks to talk to candidates about, what arrangements they've made or their colleagues have made and everything, I think has been really important. But I think, I think knowing who's going to do well and who's going to be successful and enjoy the challenge of working at your company is something that as a technology leader is really important to figure out pretty early when you come into an organization or you take over a new team, to help make sure that, we're talking to the right people, we're targeting the right people, and we're making offers to people who are going to be happy and challenged and enjoy the culture.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You nailed it right on the head with all of the points. And just to add to that, you guys have pretty amazing offices. I got a chance to visit you guys in, I believe, Financial District, right? In Manhattan, and your facilities are pretty amazing. Looking forward to visiting the OfferUp offices as well. Ameesh, I'd like to spend a couple of minutes talking about operational resilience, and how has that helped your organization to continue the delivery of key business services to your clients, especially during these times of COVID-19?
Yeah, it's look, I think this goes back to the culture point that Teresa was talking about. I think it's incredibly important that when we hire folks, we're really hiring for our kind of key leadership principles. We have this model where we have our leadership principles and what we call DNA, which is just a way that we kind of frame up our hiring bar. Pursue excellence together and stay scrappy are really two big parts of how we succeed at OfferUp. And so the people that we have here are really focused on how do we keep delivering value to our customers. Again, having the right systems and processes that extend beyond our ability just to chat with each other in the hallway and problem solve and have those whiteboard sessions has really helped us kind of ensure that we continue to operate well and thoughtfully over this time. I think tooling is an incredibly big part of this. Our ability to have Google Hangouts and Zoom and Slack, et cetera. It's kind of a little bit of a double-edged sword. It can be both very helpful and also incredibly painful at the same time. And so we're
distracting.
Yes, yeah. It's very important that we start understanding how to make sure that we're leveraging the systems and processes that we have in place to be as successful as possible. Look, this is hard for everybody. As Teresa pointed out, people have families, kids are not in school. So if you have multiple parents who are working, you kind of have to take shifts. All of these kinds of things are wrenches in the machine. But I also think that, people have really risen to the occasion to make sure that when they are focused, they are very focused and they're getting a lot of work done. We're trying to make sure that we have that same sort of work-life balance and opportunity for everybody to kind of be successful in their family life first and then their work life second. So You know, at the end of the day, I would say it's tough. This whole situation is new and unprecedented for all of us. I think the best we can do is make sure that we have the right people next to us, and we have the right kind of motivation and goals that are aligned. And if we think about problems the right way, in the same way, I think we can deliver the right value to our customers and our investors.
Yeah, thank you, Ameesh, for sharing that. And you know, you've made a point around raising the bar very high in terms of when you hire, when you recruit, and so forth. And I can definitely attest to that, as we'll partner with you guys, especially on some, you know, South Florida highly technical recs. You know, to begin with, there isn't a lot of talent, but also, you know, having that bar very high in terms of being able to recruit and attract, you know, top of the line caliber. I think it's you know, helps build that operational resilience within the organization all across. Teresa, from your standpoint, with so many companies going through downsizing, furloughs, how do you ensure that proper staff motivation and productivity is at the right levels within your company?
I think there's a couple of approaches. I think one, it's about putting people first. I think Ameesh touched on it a little bit. So whether that's your employees, whether that's your users, whether that's your customers, I think you have to take a sort of humans first approach here, and work with all of these folks whose, you know, worlds have changed. I think secondly, you sort of have to do, as a technology leader, you have to sort of look at almost a Maslow's higher order of needs, right? What does keep the lights on work? What does maintenance work, right? And then if you have time, what are priorities? I think, you know, there's been lots of talk with my colleagues and peers out there about roadmaps have sort of, you know, have a lot less meaning now. And we're focused on priorities, right? And so I think talking with my team, it's like, let's pick a couple priorities. Let's not put hard deadlines, right? Let's just get people something to focus on once we sort of work up those order of needs, and really do that. And I think, you know, helping people, I think it's a real balance of being flexible, but still giving goals and still giving priorities to let people have success. You know, celebrating when you are able to launch something or complete a priority or a project, and really focusing on that. And I think it's a real balance between, you know, being transparent with your team members about what is the financial impact to your company, good, bad, or somewhere in between, being as transparent as you can. And, you know, and also keeping them motivated and focused on, you know, what we're trying to achieve and why we're here and everything. And so I think it strips away a lot of all the other concerns and makes you just have to, you know, laser focus on what matters, like I said, to your employees, to your users, to your customers, and really make sure you're delivering impact and value, given the new constraints that we're all working within.
Very good points, and thank you for sharing that. Especially, you know, couldn't agree with you more on transparency aspect of that, how important that is, especially during the times like this. Ameesh, to shift gears a little bit towards interviewing, remotely especially, what, aside from the standard tools and all of the, you know, that are available to us to facilitate the interviews, what other practical recommendations can you share that have proven to be effective for OfferUp to interview and select the right candidates?
Yeah, so this is a big passion of mine. You know, hiring top talent and finding the right people for your organization is maybe one of the most, if not the most important thing that you can do as an executive. You know, I actually did a little bit of a count a couple of months ago, and I've done 2,500 interviews over the course of my career. And so the learnings I can kind of come back to the table with here is simply this. One, don't lower your bar. Times are tough. Things are hard. Making a bad hire is actually a lot better than making a mediocre hire. So for those of you who have experienced that, I think, you know, getting rid of, you know, somebody who's just meeting the bar or just hanging on is a lot more problematic than having somebody who's very clearly not aligned with the company or able to deliver. So keeping your bar high and really focusing on making sure that the best people are coming in is incredibly important. And in times like this, it's very easy to kind of find yourself in a fortunate spot if you have open heads and your company is continuing to grow at this moment. You're going to be flooded with a ton of applicants, and some will be skill-wise capable of achieving the job, but they won't be aligned culturally. Some will be aligned culturally, but they won't be aligned from a skill perspective. My first piece of advice is just make sure that bar stays really high. You'll feel very compelled to fill the positions quickly, and that's like that instinct is the thing that you have to fight against. The second thing is that well-calibrated questions, interview questions, are super important. I think that, for those of you who are experienced interviewers and you have kind of your role cross level and a set of calibrated questions that will help you start understanding those things, that's really, really important in a time like this, because I am incredibly used to having a whiteboard in front of me. It was an incredibly valuable tool for me as I would kind of work with candidates through problems and open issues to see how they think about problems and how they deconstruct them. And now I'm realizing it's a little bit of a crutch. I'm struggling a little bit with how to get not have a whiteboard. I don't know, obviously there's lots of tools out there, draw.io and lots of other ones. I would tell you it's not as good. You can kind of pre-draw diagrams, you can have that kind of stuff set up, but part of the value of a whiteboarding exercise is really the collaboration and the thought process and the deconstruction of the problem and understanding how candidates think. So you have to find different ways to actually approach that. And what I'm kind of really focused on is using kind of current world problems that my team is facing that we are working through over the phone, over Zoom, over Google Hangouts, over Slack, and trying to understand how would they approach that same set of problems. So if you don't have calibrated questions that you can fall back to, I would say try to use situations that you're already in today, because that will help you understand how would they fit in with the rest of the team and how you're working right now. So they might have some novel ideas. They might have some novel ways of talking about it or discussing it or even working through the problem that might help you and your team later. But the reality is that keep your bar high, try to focus on things that you already know will evaluate talent well. And then if you really have to fall back to it, use some real world problems, because I think that will be very helpful in understanding the context. Great.
Thank you for sharing that, Ameesh. Teresa, from your perspective, you're being the product expert. When interviewing for your teams, a lot of questions that we got before the webinar were from product managers from that trade. And some of them were around what attributes do you look for in a product manager that help you identify a potentially successful candidate for your teams?
Yeah, so I'd say, at a highest level for hiring in general, my focus is usually on two things, attitude and aptitude, mostly because those are the things I can't teach you. I can't teach you how you learn best. I can't, everyone learns differently, and I think it's important to figure out when I give you a new challenge that you and I have the confidence that you can go learn what you need to learn. And then attitude, that, you like the culture, you like how we work, you like the problems we're solving and everything, and you come, you show up every day, ready to go after some new problems. When it comes to product managers specifically, I think there's a couple of things. I think one is really collaboration. Right. When you're at a product-led organization, product is really where business meets engineering, and you really need to be able to help the business understand, the non-functional needs of engineering. You need to have engineering understand the functional needs of the users and the business and the customers. And so that ability to sort of collaborate and tell a story and bring everyone together and along the journey, I think is super important. And And then problem solving. I think having a real problem solving point of view, which, obviously I also think is really important for engineers. But I think, what I always try and get folks to start with, because people love to come to you with a solution. And I love to sort of always step back and ask, what's the problem we're trying to solve? Let's get down to what is the, who is the user, who is the customer, what is the problem we're trying to solve? And so, if I'm interviewing a product manager, I may ask, talk to me about the first, about the last, major feature that you released, right? And I want to take them all the way back to like, how did we come up with it? How did you vet it, right? How to ensure it was going to deliver impact? Because to me, the center of that is really about impact. Did we solve a problem that really urgently needed solving, and that there wasn't something, a better way or a different way to solve it out there to create real value for our users? And so if they have that really collaborative inclination, and they have a real problem solving mindset, those are, to me, are super important for product managers, to help them sort of span all the various groups that they're sort of at the center of the wheel for the whole organization for.
Great. Yeah, absolutely. And I hope a lot of the product managers who are listening right now were taking copious notes. So thank you for sharing that. Ameesh, we've talked a little bit about interviewing. Now, to switch gears towards the actual hiring process, I'm curious, what challenges have you faced when hiring remotely, and how did you resolve them? Have you noticed any particular differences between traditional hiring versus currently adapted processes?
Yeah, I mean, this is, I think this is probably something that everybody is struggling with. We had a fairly healthy pipeline coming into this pandemic. And what I would say is that there's a lot of fear and uncertainty in the market at the moment. People who are in comfortable jobs, passive candidates that were being recruited into the organization, I think are asking themselves the question, do I want to leave someplace stable? Do I want to leave someplace that, I know what the situation is. I know the company financials. I know the players involved. Obviously, making any kind of job change, I think, is an incredibly nerve-wracking experience. It can be both exciting, but it's also you have to be willing to take some level of risk, right? No matter where you're going. You could be going to a giant company like Microsoft or Facebook or Google, or you could be coming to smaller companies like Stack Overflow or OfferUp. And there's pros and cons to both. And so I think that the first challenge I would say is that particularly with senior talent, we've been struggling a little bit with helping people just kind of get over the hump to say, it's okay to take the risk. Like we have the stability, we have the capability to have a long-term future for you here. Obviously my heart goes out to all our brothers and sisters in the startup community. Like, this has been so painful to watch, and we have lots of friends and family in all of these different companies. So huge amount of sympathy for everybody going through tough times, and that's just the business side. Obviously all the folks that are getting sick, we and the healthcare workers and all of this stuff, like we want to make sure that we're being thoughtful on that front. But from a hiring and recruiting perspective, all of these factors play into people's decisions, because they're trying to synthesize all the different variables that are coming at them left and right. Oh, does the stay-at-home order stay? Does it go away? People are going to the beach. How many debts and how many hospital beds are being filled? Do I have my insurance? All of these kinds of things. Like, inertia is a tough one to work through. As we referred to earlier, our acquisition of Letgo and the new investment has helped us kind of overcome many of those fears. But I would say that we're incredibly fortunate to be in that situation, to have news like that we can share. I don't take that for granted in any bit at all. So I think we're in a very blessed spot here. But that inertia is really the toughest thing I would characterize as the biggest challenge of recruiting during this crisis.
Absolutely, absolutely. Teresa, from your standpoint, for candidates whom were hired remotely, how do you ensure that proper onboarding and integration within the team is still in place for those newly hired employees?
Well, like I said, the good news is we were 80% remote, so we've been onboarding remotely since our founding over 10 years ago.
Right.
So we have a lot of practices we use. So one, our people operations team has a series. We onboard folks every 2 weeks, and we have a series of meetings those first 2 weeks that folks from across different organizations in the company lead and talk everything about sort of, whether it's history of marketing at Stack, or how this team operates, or what you need to know to work with all these different organizations. We have those set up that everyone who is a new hire to the company automatically goes through. Along with the laptop, we send a box of goodies to new hires, and have always done that. The other things we do is that the hiring manager sets up a series of meet and greets before the person even starts. So they start and they log in, and over the course of a month, they'll have meet and greets, obviously starting with sort of their internal team that they're working with, but then expanding out even up to me through that first month. So they get some one-on-one time to help build the relationships. I think that's the thing in a remote environment, is building relationships is just harder. You don't have a water cooler. You don't have to sit down in the lunchroom and strike up a conversation and everything. So we have things like, we call it Stack Roulette. I think on Slack now they have Donut, where they match people up randomly in an organization to do that. A lot of our teams also have different sort of social get-togethers. Some of them have a coffee hour. Some of them, in my org, we have a Bev Bash, a remote Bev Bash every Friday afternoon, where people just get on and talk about whatever. The conversation's obviously been more directed as of late. But I think it's also having get-togethers to replace the more social aspects to help with the relationship building. And so that's more, whether it's more skip levels, it's more, you have to be more intentional about the relationship and the trust. Even for New York, which is our headquarters, as you mentioned, which is literally almost next door to where I live, lucky me, or under normal circumstances. We had a lunchroom. We had lunch every day together, and so some of the teammates created a Zoom where anybody who's eating lunch at 12 Eastern, even though our teams are global, we can do that. Now during our Bev Bashes, we've opened them up to the whole company, and now we're doing quiz competitions. So people join quiz teams and do that. And so I think it's that combination of being pretty prescribed in that first month to make sure they're connected with the people they need to connect to, as well as letting them build the social and the relationships that we all know are so important in actually getting things done and really enjoying where we work.
That's great. Very, very creative strategies there. Ameesh, from your standpoint, there are a lot of topics on leadership through crisis, especially these days, but not too much emphasis on personal productivity strategies. What has helped you personally to stay productive, and any specific recommendations that you provide, to your own teammates?
Yeah, so this is an incredibly important question. And I think after, we've all been kind of roughly in quarantine for about 45 days now. I think we're all feeling a little bit of the stress of work is more right now. You would think that we're working from home and, it would be a little bit easier, a little bit slower paced. I have found it to be exactly the opposite of that. And I think that there's been several kind of self-realizations about it. One is you're never disconnected. People are taking different times off during the day. They have childcare issues, or they're taking care of their folks, or whatever's going on in their life. That is the overriding priority, that we made sure that everybody knows that that's the most important thing. But what the byproduct of that is that, John, you might be off in the morning and you're working later in the evening, and maybe one of our colleagues is off in the evening and working early in the morning, and we're all getting pinged all the time. And so it never stops. So I think, for me personally, I've done a couple of things. One is I just block time on my calendar for myself to make sure that I have time to go for a walk or watch a TV show or do something so that I'm not constantly on. For those, I was having a conversation with one of my colleagues, and he had been working in the past, working from home quite a bit for many years. And he actually gave me a very kind of specific suggestion, which is designate a space in your home that is your work from home space. When you're there, you work. When you leave, you don't work. And for me right now, my setup is that I'm next to my couch and I'm in my, my office / living room, and it's all one and the same. So it kind of all blurs together. So my advice to everybody is, be kind to yourself. This is an incredibly stressful time, incredibly stressful situation. We all are very busy, and we're working very hard and diligently to make sure that we're delivering value for our customers. But at the end of the day, if you're burned out and you're working nonstop from 8 to 10 every day, like it doesn't work. The quality of your output will go down, your irritability will go up, et cetera. So, my general advice is block time. Like if you live and die by your calendar like I do, I would say block time on it. Be intentional about your personal time to decompress, to relax, to, step away from Slack, to step away from Zoom, to step away from all the things and clear your head, because it's very easy to just say, well, I'm not doing anything, and somebody's slacking me, or I'm just watching a TV show, it doesn't matter. No, your time is your time. You have to be kind to yourself. So I would say take care of your personal responsibilities, your familial responsibilities, take care of your work responsibilities, but don't forget to take care of yourself.
Right, absolutely. Teresa, you've been the expert in remote work. Curious to hear some of your recommendations and practical strategies to stay productive during these times.
For me, it's all about routine. I think I was talking with some of my peers on our leadership team at Stack, and we were talking about trying to have routines that mark the beginning of your day, the end of your day, right? For me, I like 30 minutes in the morning before I have my first meeting. I also live and die by my calendar. The calendar tells me what to do and where to go and who to talk to. So for me, that 30 minutes in the morning to just see if any email came in overnight, have a cup of coffee, and sort of feel prepared for the day. Because often once I start, I'm back to back, right, till 5 or 6 or later at night. And sort of just getting that time to look at my calendar, to check my email, to look at my priorities for the next day, and also sort of have, a closing end of the day. Like at the end of the last meeting, walk away. Even if I end up doing work later, having that sort of, time where I eat dinner with my husband, right? Maybe watch some mindless TV, do something, that challenges a different part of my brain. I think that routine is important for that. I echo the be kind to yourself, because I feel like, to the point that people's schedules have changed, also our priorities have changed. Some companies are dealing with new challenges, different challenges, shrinking challenges, right? And especially as an executive, being willing to sort of be able to say some of these priorities that were priorities 45 and 60 days ago are now lower on the list, because other priorities have come up, and not trying to feel like you just keep adding to the pile, and the pile can become limitless. So I think trying to find that routine. And also the other thing I would say is, because of the sort of different work schedules, because of people's different personal challenges, being really transparent with your peers and your colleagues. I started at AOL 23 years ago, back when everyone used their AIM and AOL status. I feel like, we're encouraging our folks to use our Slack status. Like if you're away from keyboard, right, for an hour, if you're going to, if you're stepping away to have lunch, if you're going to be out for the next couple hours, both setting a routine sort of every day and expectations with your team, but also just, but also if you need to step away for a little bit or taking needing to take a mental health hour or a mental health day, just really being over transparent and over communicative and setting expectations with your team. I think everyone's really empathetic and understanding. And I think the more you set some boundaries and set expectations, the more others can give you the space you need.
And these are great recommendations, and something I wanted to add to both what you guys were saying. I recently hosted one executive on the podcast, and one thing that stood out, what he said as a recommendation, is never work in your pajamas. It seems very simple, but at the same time, I guess that's that right mentality as you prepare for your workday. And also at the end of the day, you're not getting paid to work in your pajamas. So that's just something that kind of fun fact that stood out to me. Teresa, from your standpoint, for executives who are new or have not led the teams remotely before, what lessons learned can you share based on your experience?
Well, some of the things I already mentioned, right? Like having more skip levels, trying to find ways to get a pulse, using maybe things like Office Vibe or other ways to sort of get a pulse of what's going on in your organization, how they're feeling, right? Getting that feedback. I'd say video is key. I know there's some organizations who either don't have that turn on the video culture or can't because of VPN or bandwidth constraints. I think, move mountains to do that, because talking just the voice, on a day-to-day basis, it's really hard to engage and read people and develop those relationships and trust. And I think the other thing, especially as an executive, is over-communicate. I always say that I know about the time that I am tired of hearing myself communicate something is about the time people are starting to internalize that information that I'm communicating. And so I have to sort of push through I'm tired of hearing myself say it. But I think that's really important. Over-communicate often, multiple forms of communication, because different people, better listen to and internalize it in different ways, written versus, audio versus chat ops and everything. So those are some of the things that I would give as advice.
Great. Absolutely. Ameesh, from your standpoint, what is your company doing to contribute to the global fight with the pandemic these days? And how do you balance that with the current mission of the company?
Yeah, this is a tricky question here. So first thing I would say is that, we're a publicly facing, we're a marketplace that both promotes interpersonal connections and with people online and offline. Everything that's going on with COVID is really just breaks our heart. Like we want to help, all of our customers be successful, both buyers and sellers. So this has changed a huge amount of how people do business on OfferUp. But as you were saying earlier, so many stores are closed. People are still looking for things, whether it's fitness equipment like a bicycle or, a gym set or a jungle gym for their kids in the backyard or clothes or whatever. I think that, I feel like we're in a very privileged position to be able to help people not only find the things that they need, but also extract value in times where, the economics might be tough for lots of individuals. And so, our hope is that we can provide the facilities to help buyers and sellers connect with each other and prosper. I think the second thing is that, obviously we are very focused on our kind of community outreach, et cetera. So, we've taken a bunch of our T&E budget and really donated it to two different organizations in Seattle and Miami. I believe the names of the companies are the Plate Fund in Seattle and Frontline Foods in Miami. The Plate Fund is really helping furloughed restaurant workers, and Frontline Foods is helping medical workers, providing meals and cash to help them kind of work through this. These guys are really they're the ones who are helping kind of the society kind of continue normally. And so, whether they're working, in hospitals, et cetera, we want to try to be as helpful to that community as we possibly can. And in the same token, I would say our ability to create economic opportunity for individuals in the country who are struggling at the moment to say, you know what, I normally would have just given that to Goodwill, or I normally would have just thrown that away. Now, they can look at their garage and they say, there's $300 of stuff in here that's going to pay for groceries for my month, and that's something great that we can help facilitate. And in the same token, on the buyer side, we can provide really great value to individuals and, promote kind of this re-commerce model. So, we're trying to do the best that we possibly can and really focus on how do we help our buyers and sellers? How do we make sure that, as a company, we're also being thoughtful about all the people that are helping us kind of survive in society as a whole. So we're trying to do the best we can is the best I would say.
Great, absolutely. And so with respect to the time, I just have one more question, Teresa, for you. How do you ensure that your end users and clients are staying productive and are more empowered as they were prior to shifting to, to remote work these days?
So we've done a couple of things. Very quickly, we took our Stack Overflow for Teams product that I mentioned before, which is, an internal organization, our basic version, and we made it free. I think now we said till July. We'll obviously continue that. I think when we did this in early March, we didn't know how long this would last, but we made it free. And we've seen organizations who didn't have that need for knowledge management before, but we've even seen hospital groups and other healthcare providers and other orgs that have now had to step up functions taking advantage of it, not just technology orgs, which has been really satisfying to see. Secondly, we've done a lot. We've done podcasts, we've done best practices, we've done webinars, we've published content on, hey, we are a remote org. Let us tell you what we've learned, right? One of my mottos is always always make new mistakes. So let us teach you the mistakes we've made and our best practices from being a remote org, so you can adopt them. So we've tried to really share our knowledge as much as possible. We actually did a blog post that got some pickup on several places about like how to build and scale an open source VPN, because lots of people were dealing with that challenge. And then lastly, I think for our customers, we've tried to be really flexible to help maintain the relationships with our customers during their changing priorities and needs, whether that's growth and scaling more seats, whether that's, scaling down the number of jobs they're recruiting for or whatnot. But just really trying to be, that people first mindset, right? How can we help our customers stay customers and and react to their changing environments and priorities.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that, Teresa. So with the few minutes that we have left, I'd like to switch to some of the questions from the audience that we have. There's a question for Connie. Ameesh, if you don't mind taking that one. Will the new normal encourage companies to be more flexible about remote workforce?
I think it has to be. I mean, I don't know that we have a choice. I think the people that are going to be on their heels are going to be at a severe disadvantage. I think the people that are going to lean into it are going to be the ones who really reap the rewards from it. I would say that there's many, many markets in the country that have incredible talent pools that would not normally want to relocate to high cost of living areas like San Francisco or Seattle or other places like that. So I think that people like to live where they want to live. This has created a huge opportunity for us to just force the matter, and I think that's actually good. Like, we should embrace it. We should really figure out how to make it work. And as Teresa said, her company's been doing this for a long time, and they've clearly been very successful with it. Ours, it's a little bit new for us. So there's a lot of like logistical things, like how do we get laptops shipped to the right people and how does onboarding work? And, but these are all solvable problems. There's nothing to be afraid of in this. So my 2 cents is that yes, we should open up to a really, you know, a globalized workforce. And I find it very interesting, the dichotomy between borders getting closed and airplanes not going anywhere. And the flip side is I'm looking at the company and saying, I want to be able to hire anywhere in the world because I just want the best talent that wants to be working at OfferUp. So there's like this very interesting two sides of the coin that's going on right now.
And I'd add, John, you know, when I was offered the role and took it at Stack, I saw the fact that we had a remote workforce as a plus. You know, as Ameesh said, like as a technology executive, we spend at least half of our time, you know, attracting and developing technology talent, right? And having hired in, you know, major hotspots across, you know, across the globe, it's competitive and it's hard. And I saw that as a real plus to be able to recruit really great talent. Maybe they did live in one of these hot centers, but then eventually decided for quality of life or, you know, personal reasons to go somewhere else. And just opening that scope of candidates, and those candidates are also less likely to job hop and everything. I saw it as a real plus. If anything, for me, it's going to be less of an advantage. Because more and more folks like Ameesh and team are going to start recruiting for this. But I think it's the right thing, and I think it's going to provide people a lot more freedom, and sort of, you know, where you live does not limit where you work.
Right, absolutely. There's quite a few questions, so I'm just going to pick randomly if you guys don't mind. There's a question from Greg. Hiring takes time. After reprioritization of projects and the budgets get approved, how are you aligning with your HR organizations to be ready for the ramp up of hiring in your specific areas? Asking because he's concerned there will be a bottleneck to get people back to work if the processes aren't in place or refined to handle the influx.
So I can just tell you very candidly that, you know, my HR partner and my finance partner we're tied at the hip. So we work very, very closely together to make sure that our job is to enable the team to go build the things that we need to go build. And so those processes, from a hiring perspective, from a budgeting perspective, from an onboarding perspective, they all have to be set up and ready to go, so that we can clear the road for the people who actually really do the work to be successful and unencumbered. So I would say simple answer for me is yes. And I have amazing partners on both sides of the table that are helping me achieve that goal.
The thing I would add here, having done this plenty of times, is when it comes to technology hiring, there is no on-off switch. And there's a lot of times as a technology executive, you have to do education of that. You need a, you know, for the positions that you have the most of, or you have the most need for, you sort of need to have a continuous pipeline, right? And you know, building that pipeline, if you turn it off and then building that pipeline back up and regaining that muscle memory and all of that is really rough. And, you know, over the years, I spent a lot of time with, you know, our head of people, head of finance, CFO, helping them understand that technology hiring is different. And and what's important, you know, whether it's sort of having a certain number of extra headcount that are for, you know, for backfills, because inevitably, you know, you're going to have some turnover. It just happens in technology. You know, having a pipeline for identifying a couple key roles, like I said, that are the majority of your team, or can be fairly generic so that you can keep a pipeline sort of going. And opportunistic hiring, I think, is really important. And you should really be advocating and educating your partners across the organization about this.
That's great. Thank you guys so much for participating, for taking the time to listen to Teresa and Ameesh. Ameesh, Teresa, thank you so much for making time to talk to all of us today, share the valuable insights. They were very useful, very valuable, at least for me. And I can share a lot of the sentiment that have been shared in the comments below, thanking you guys. So I apologize that we weren't able to get to all of the questions, but definitely, you know, check out other webinars that we have coming up. We have one coming up on the May 8th with another group of executives, so that should be very exciting. And again, thank you guys so much for participating. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, take care, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.